Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well and welcome back to the channel. Now I'm here today with both an apology and a tutorial, so I hope you enjoy. So a while ago I released a video about exploits found in War Thunder's Air Simulator mode, and that got a lot of attention from all kinds of people within the player base. I was honestly surprised that it blew up so quickly, and it was great to see so much engagement. However, a lot of people in the comments didn't agree with the points that I made in the video, and many made their opinions known in multiple ways. But amongst all of the general soup and confusion that can be expected of the YouTube comments section, there was some really good discussions and some really great points were made, and they primarily focused around the grind in War Thunder. Now, I want to make something very clear that maybe I didn't do very well in the previous video. War Thunder's economy, its grind system, and the problems of BR compression are by far and away the biggest cause of grief for the player base. I think that a lot of people got the wrong impression that I was somehow okay with the length of the game's grind, and that definitely isn't the case. And after reviewing the video with a clearer head, I do agree that I came across as quite a massive dick. So I apologise for that, and for giving the wrong signals. So I'm making this video. I've unlisted the previous video, and I've also updated the video's thumbnail and added a comment to direct people to this video, as I believe this one does a much better job of discussing the problems of the game's grind and what it forces players to do. Now, this actual video itself was going to be something that I planned to do later on in the year anyway, but after the other video's recent popularity and controversy, I thought I should do it now, and hopefully you guys find it useful. I'll explain why the grind exists, how it's implemented, what's wrong with its implementation, and of course, most importantly, a guide to making your grind easier. No matter what game mode you play, be that arcade, realistic, or sim, there should be some hints here for you. Now, as a result of this video will most likely be quite long, between half an hour to an hour maybe, so I will of course timestamp it for those of you who wish to skip to certain sections. Don't forget to leave a comment below with your thoughts, and if you enjoyed the video, consider dropping a like. So how does the grind work? Now, a lot of you already know the fundamentals of this, but I still want to go over it for those who would like a clear explanation. So War Thunder has a huge amount of playable aircraft, vehicles, and ships across several nations. These vehicles are made available to the player through a progression-based system, which usually runs in chronological order. So a brand new player would start with the oldest and less technically advanced vehicles, and as they play matches in War Thunder, they will progress to the newer and more advanced ones. This progression is done through the accumulation of research points and silver lions. Research points go towards unlocking the next vehicle in the tech tree, and silver lions are required to purchase the vehicle and train the crew members to be able to use said vehicle. On top of that, you also have a progression system built within the vehicles themselves in the form of the module system. Now, when you first unlock a new plane, tank, or ship, it comes as a stock vehicle, where you will need to earn research points to upgrade the vehicle with modules that either improve its survivability, performance, or its firepower. Once you have fully upgraded the vehicle, you have now spaded it, which was a term coined by the spade icon shown in for fully upgraded vehicles in the game's menu. These modules also cost research points to unlock, and then you need to spend silver lions to purchase them. As you progress through the tech trees to unlock better vehicles, the amount of research points required to unlock them will increase, as will the silver lion cost to purchase and train the crews. The same goes for modules as well. On top of this, as you progress through the game, you will also be required to spend silver lions on more expensive ammunition and ordnance loadouts, and you'll also have to spend silver lions repairing your vehicles after they have been destroyed or damaged in the game. Now, every vehicle comes with 10 free repairs when you first unlock it, but after that it will be another thing to spend silver lions on. So to broadly summarize the grind, you need research points to unlock the vehicles, and you also need research points to unlock the modules for said vehicles too. You need silver lions to purchase the vehicle, purchase its modifications, restock its ammunition, pay for its repairs, train its crew, and then upgrade its crew if you so desire. So as you can probably see, the requirements for a healthy supply of silver lions is very high, and as you progress through the game and get to the higher tiers, this grows frankly to ridiculous levels. But I don't want to talk about the issues of that just yet. I want to talk about why the grind is here in the first place. The answer is very simple: money. War Thunder is advertised as a free-to-play game, however it is designed in such a way that it will steer players towards the decision to spend money on the game to make the grind easier. The aim is not, of course, to get every player to open their wallet, though that would be a wet dream for the publishers. But the aim is to get a decent enough percentage of players to spend money. Why? So the game can of course be maintained and continue to be developed. Regardless of your thoughts on the development choices made with War Thunder, it is impossible to dispute the large amount of work that has been put into the game over the years. We have multiple game modes, thousands of aircraft, tanks and ships, and multitudes of maps. We have events, big and small, and of course all of the game is running online 24/7. Now all of that work is going to cost money. You've got software, hardware, wages, server maintenance, advertising, licenses, the list goes on. So yes, War Thunder is a free-to-play game, but it simply would not exist if a decent chunk of the players didn't spend money on it. Now, progression systems are very common in games because they keep the player engaged. This can be broken down to basic psychology. You do a task, the task rewards you. That makes your brain produce the happy juice known as endorphins, and it leaves you with a desire for more. The amount of endorphins released is significantly higher if you have overcome a higher challenge or risk. Now, War Thunder's progression system is designed to, essentially, frustrate players into spending money if they want an easier progression. But there are also a few other ways that money can be spent on the game, either directly or indirectly, that isn't always related to the grind. So currently the options open for players to spend money directly on the game are buying Silver Lions, buying Golden Eagles, buying premium vehicle packs, and buying Gaijin coins for the marketplace. The two most valuable purchases are of course Golden Eagles and Gaijin coins, as they can be used to indirectly buy other things within the game. Golden Eagles can be used to purchase Silver Lions, premium vehicles, boost vehicle research, accelerate crew training which improves vehicle performance, modifications for the vehicles, additional crew slots for your lineup, paint schemes and camouflages for your vehicles, decorative cosmetic items, battle trophies, and the right to create a squadron if you so desire. Now, Gaijin coins can be spent on the marketplace to purchase event vehicles, rare premiums, paint jobs, decorations, and such. But the most common use of Gaijin coins has been to purchase required items for a lot of the recent in-game events, something that I will go into a bit further in a little bit. So as you can see, there are a lot of ways in which players can spend money on War Thunder if they choose. But that's the thing, it should be a conscious choice. It should be something that you don't feel obligated to do, and this is where War Thunder has run into some big problems. The grind is, simply, too much. That is literally what it boils down to. But why is it too much? Once upon a time, it wasn't too much. Once upon a time, there were less nations to play in War Thunder, and there were considerably less vehicles to unlock and purchase. However, over the years, more and more has been added to the game, and the grind has increased significantly, whereas the rewards for playing and doing well definitely have not. Over the past 3 years, the amount of vehicles in the game has more than tripled in number, and some tech trees have grown truly vast, with the options to play aircraft, tanks, helicopters, and naval vessels now at a player's fingertips. Each of those vehicle trees represents a significant investment of time and effort into the game with the current grind mechanics, and the average free-to-play player will be lucky if they reach top tier with a specific nation within a year, and that's just for one of those tech trees, be it aircraft, tanks, boats, whatever. It's nigh on impossible to reach top tier with multiple trees within any reasonable amount of time if you are a free-to-play account holder. Higher tier vehicles require 300,000 plus research points to unlock, and it's just as bad with some of the modules. To unlock and spade just a couple of top tier tanks, or ships, or helicopters, or planes will take you a few million in research points and a very long time. And that's just the research points. We haven't even gotten to the cost of Silver Lions. The rewards in the game when it comes to the Silver Lions are nowhere near as good enough long before you even reach top tier now. In fact, the cost, when compared to your average rewards, they start getting out of hand by the time you reach rank 5. And to show you what I mean, I'll give you an example, and we'll have a look at the German Leopard 1 for this. So the Leopard is a rank 5 medium tank, and it requires 160,000 research points to unlock. It then requires 390,000 Silver Lions to purchase, and then an additional 110,000 Silver Lions to train the crew, bringing the total purchase amount for the base, unspaded vehicle to 500,000 Silver Lions. Now that's already a lot of Silver Lions just for one vehicle that sits nowhere near the top tier brackets of the game. And then you have the modifications to consider. It has 6 mobility modules, which require in total 42,800 RP to unlock, and then 62,700 Silver Lions to purchase. Then you have the 3 protection modules, which require in total 16,000 RP to unlock, and 30,100 Silver Lions to purchase. And finally, you have 9 firepower modules, which require in total 65,600 RP to unlock, and then 96,200 silver lions to purchase. In total, you will need to earn an additional 124,400 RP to unlock the modules, and then spend another 189,000 silver lions to purchase them and spade the leopard. In total, taking into account the tank's repair cost, you would probably have to spend around 250,000 silver lions on this tank from the time you purchased it to the time you spaded it. And that's just one tank. There are 6 other rank 5 tanks in the German tech tree, and it is even worse with the US and Russian tech trees having even more tanks in them at this tier. I've spoken to a lot of players recently about this issue, and overall rank 5 seems to be the tier where a lot of the free-to-play players have given up with the game, as anything after that requires significantly more time to grind and unlock vehicles, and also they tend to find themselves being crippled by said vehicles' repair costs. And it's not surprising when you consider the average earnings. Roughly speaking, if you have a good, not amazing, just good, tier 5 game and you win, you will probably earn on average between 25 to 35,000 silver lions and maybe 7 to 12,000 RP, give or take. Now this is with no premium time and with no premium vehicles. That's barely enough silver lions to cover the repair cost of most lineups. Hell, sometimes that will leave you with a deficit if you lose a couple of decent tanks. And then there is the pitiful RP earnings for free-to-play players. Yes, I get it, you will earn a lot more with a premium account and vehicles, but the amount earned for free accounts is far too low even for the mid-tiers now. Even if you're a free-to-play player, the game should not be actively punishing you for playing. The fact that you have to do ludicrously well in a mid-tier game just to break even with silver lions shows to me that the economy system of the game is critically flawed and in desperate need of an update. The requirements for silver lions has been spread over too many different aspects of the game, and the grind is simply far too much compared to the average rewards that are now given. This is what's driving new players to quit the game after only a few weeks. This is what drives veteran players away when they have their 3rd night in a row losing silver lions in mid-tier games due to excessive repair and armament costs. And this is why I, personally, find it hard to get excited about newer vehicles being added to the game, because my thoughts aren't, oh cool, they finally added X vehicle, this will be great. It's, oh no, I wonder how much of a grind this one will be. That is not the sort of mentality we should be having when new stuff gets added to the game. We should be excited, but because of the grind, we dread it. Now Gaijin's marketing definitely doesn't help with this situation. Almost all of their recent adverts have shown mostly modern, top-tier vehicles, advanced MBTs, helicopters and such, so you have this influx of new players coming to the game, expecting to be able to play these cool-looking Cold War vehicles, only to find they are locked behind a grind wall of at least a year, and Lord knows how many millions worth of silver lions to spend. War Thunder has become increasingly unfriendly to new players by simply showing them it is impossible to unlock even a fraction of the game's vehicles within a reasonable time frame and without spending a chunk of money. And then to rub salt in the wounds, you have the events of recent years. Over the past couple of years, there have been in-game events, a few times a year, where players can play the game and earn cumulative rewards that go towards unlocking event-exclusive content, usually in the form of quite cool vehicles. Now, the most controversial have been the so-called Build-A-Bear events, like the Space Race event which had several exclusive vehicles, notably the Russian Object 279. These events required players to play the game, and for X amount of battle time they are given reward items that are used to build something in that event, such as a rocket ship for example. The more the player plays the game, the more stuff they earn, and this stuff is then used to craft more complex stuff, which is then used to craft even more complex stuff until you reach your goal and are rewarded with the vehicle you want. Now these events were definitely a grind, and Gaijin gave players the option to buy their way through the event by purchasing reward items to speed it up, which in practice sounds okay. However, what isn't okay was the fact that if you wanted to get all of the vehicles in the event, you had no choice but to spend money. Event rewards were limited, so that players had no choice but to spend money if they wanted all of the rewards. Now that is straight up bullshit. Those sort of events should be there to help boost the player base by enticing new and old players back with the new rewards, not forcing them to open their wallets on a game that is free to play. And yes, some of the event vehicles have been premiums, so for them to have a cost associated with them is acceptable. But many more event vehicles are not premium vehicles at all, and should in no way, shape or form be locked behind a fucking paywall. The worst thing about it is that those events could have the capability to be so much more fun, but instead it just feels like another massive grind on top of the already massive grind that is the game itself. And yeah, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth. Of course, the game needs a progression system, and yes, to agree, it needs to be a bit grindy. But the state of War Thunder's current grind is absolutely fucked. Even for me, a player with a premium account and a lot more free time on my hands than many other players, I still think the grind is too much. Now with that little rant aside, I want to talk about the important thing, ways to make the grind easier. So we've now come to the part of the video that you've probably all come here to see in the first place. How do we get the grind to be a bit easier for ourselves and for our friends? It's no surprise that people will take every opportunity possible to get around the grind or make it easier, as they basically feel like now the developers are giving them a giant middle finger, with every growing repair cost, research requirement, expanding tech tree, whilst making no changes to the reward system and in fact even nerfing them in some cases. So some ways to get ahead are easier than others, and some are a bit sketchy when it comes to adhering to the game rules and may result in an account ban, so I'm only going to talk about the ones that won't get your hard-earned stuff deleted. So, how do you make the grind, particularly the Silver Lion grind, easier? Well, your options will depend on your chosen game modes, however there are a few universal tips that can apply across the board, and I'll go over those first. So tip number 1, use the matchmaker to your advantage. Now this one is more for arcade and realistic. If you want to earn good amounts of Silver Lions, facing constant up tiers is not going to help with that. There are some BR brackets that you want to avoid. However, as Gaijin likes to change battle ratings more than the weather likes to change here in Queensland, it's important to keep up to date with what battle ratings are which for which vehicle. Tip 2, check the reward modifier. Always check to see what non-premium vehicles have good reward modifiers for their tier. There are always going to be higher earners, and if your goal is to maximize your SL income, then you want the highest modifier possible. That being said, make sure you also follow my previous point and make sure that you're at a good BR bracket that isn't going to guarantee you in constant up tiers. Tip 3. Turn off automatic repair and automatic ammo refilling after a battle. So turning off these features, especially automatic repair, can save you a lot of Silver Lions. If you've finished playing the game for the day, don't repair any damaged vehicles, simply wait until you next play. Even if you're only offline for a few hours, you could be saving thousands of Silver Lions in repair costs, especially if you play multiple nations, and especially for vehicles that have got ludicrously high repair costs, particularly certain aircraft. Tip 4. Pay attention to the sales. So multiple times across the year there will be varying sales on War Thunder. Some of these include large discounts on the Silver Lion costs for vehicles. So if you really want to save Lions and you're patient, you can literally save millions by waiting to purchase your top tier toys when they get a juicy 50% discount. Now these sales often include a discount for premium time, so if you're looking to get premium time, wait till these sales and you can get it at a much cheaper rate. 5. Use boosters. There is a bit of a myth in the community that boosters don't work, or that they guarantee you bad games. This is nothing but confirmation bias. I have earned huge amounts of SL and RP with boosters, and can tell you that they are definitely worth using. Yes, you're going to get good games, yes, you're going to get bad games, but when you activate your boosters, the one thing that is guaranteed is your income will always be increased. So activate your boosters, try not to think about them, and simply enjoy the ride. So those general tips are probably already common knowledge, but I wanted to mention them anyway just to cover all my bases. Now, onto some more specific tips. And before I begin, I want to point out that the following tips apply for both free-to-play players and those who want to spend money. However, you will earn significantly more rewards with a premium account, premium vehicles, or both, but regardless, this should help you with your grinding needs. Now, let's look at the game modes. Now, from my experience, you will earn the most Silver Lions from the following game modes: Air Arcade, Air Realistic, Tank Realistic, and Air Sim. So if you're purely looking for grinding Silver Lions, the other game modes do not provide enough of an earning opportunity in my opinion. So out of these, which ones do you play? Well, it should be obvious. Play the one that you enjoy the most. At the end of the day, you should still be playing something that you enjoy, even if you are just trying to grind out some silver lions for your jets or your boats or whatever. Because at the end of the day, we play the game to have fun. So for the love of God, try to have fun. Now, Air Arcade. Arcade games mostly consist of ground strike missions and domination missions. Ground strike missions offer a good supply of both ground and air targets in the form of AI ground targets and air targets being players. This is a good place to take out a multi-role aircraft that have both good anti-air and anti-ground loadouts. This is a particularly fun place to be if you have the American tech trees unlocked. A large amount of ground kills will give you a good net reward as well as very high battle time, and you can further increase this with premium time or premium vehicles that have a focus on close air support. Now, domination missions involve landing and capturing airfields, either 1 or 3 depending on the map. Now, this is mostly an air combat mode with a heavy focus on dogfights and interception, but there are also lots of soft ground targets scattered throughout the game. So if you have a light bomber or a relatively decent attacker with a good loadout, you can still get some pretty good RP and silver lions purely by popping all of the soft targets like armored cars and light tanks. So it's definitely something worth to take in, although be careful, you're going to be low and you're going to be subject to a lot of enemy fire. Now, if you have them, I recommend using the Destroy 5 Units wager for Air Arcade battles. It's reasonably easy to get 5 air kills in the span of a game, especially if you bring a powerful lineup and those wagers give you a decent payout at the end of it. Now, if you have a few premium aircraft all around the same battle rating, Arcade can be a real moneymaker if you know how to use them. I have a disgustingly good lineup that I use in Arcade for America, and it always earns me a lot. I consistently get between 50 to 125,000 silver lions a game, depending on if I win or lose, and then if you chuck a booster into the mix, I can pull in 250k to $500,000 in a game if I get incredibly lucky. I may be known for my sim content, but I really do love the chaos of a good Air Arcade game, and I have got a lot of arcade games under my belt, and I still enjoy the game mode, even if I don't do content on it. A final point to bear in mind is that with Arcade, usually the repair costs are a lot lower than the other two game modes, so if you are running particularly low on Silver Lions and you usually play Sim or Realistic, consider using Arcade as a way to sort of earn back some of that, Silver Lion deficit. I know some people think Arcade is very basic, but it's honestly a lot of fun, and it's very challenging. Like the skills required to play Arcade compared to RB and Sim are just as different and varied, so please do not discount that game mode. It can be a lot of fun and it can earn you a lot of rewards. Now, Tank RB. So the tips on this one might sound pretty arbitrary, but it is amazing how many people don't adhere to these sort of unwritten rules. So rule number 1 is to stay mobile and don't camp unless you absolutely have to. The more active you are and the more mobile you are usually works to your advantage in both of survivability and earnings. A mobile target is always more harder to kill than a stationary one, and the more battle time you have, the more you earn. Even if you don't get any good kills, you can still make a lot of cash with damage taken, assists, scouting, and just taking part in the greater battle itself. Do not underestimate the strength of battle time earnings, it can make a huge difference. Now, another thing is capturing points. Capturing points yields decent rewards, both SL and RP, and you have the possibility of encountering and destroying opponents trying to contest the objective. Now, I see a lot of players avoid capture points because they are afraid of being destroyed themselves, but I assure you the reward is on average far greater than the risk. You might as well get in there, get active on your battle time, and just go for gold. The best advice I can give for Tank RB, which again sounds fairly self-explanatory, is find others to play with. Playing with others is probably the most relevant in Tank RB than any other game mode. Good teamwork and communication means you'll be able to cover each other's backs, and you can also make excellent use of the best squad wagers if you have one handy. Especially useful if you're in a squad of 4, and completing those wagers nets you $500,000 silver lions. A lot of people say, they don't have anyone to play tanks with. There are a lot of popular content creators, and there are a lot of Discord groups out there for people that play War Thunder. Even Reddit has a Discord group. There's a main War Thunder Discord group as well, and I always see heaps of people in there on voice chat, and they're happy to have people join depending on what battle rating you are. So if you're playing on your own and you want to find people to play with, just search for Discord groups, because that's usually the best place. Now, one more final note I want to make on Tank RB is the use of CAS, Close Air Support. Close Air Support is a bit of a controversial subject sometimes. Some people think it shouldn't belong in tank battles, some people think it should. However, it is here, and it is definitely here to stay. I cannot see it getting removed from the game, so you might as well make use of it as well. Getting air kills with your own aircraft and getting ground kills with it is a good way of earning research points, especially if you have a premium aircraft that has ordnance. So if you have a premium aircraft with ordnance or just a regular aircraft with ordnance, for the love of God, take it into the tank game and learn how to get good with your bombs, because it'll definitely help you make some earnings. Now, moving away from tanks, let's look at air realistic. Now, if you have a fighter with ordnance options, don't take out the ordnance right away. I'm looking at people who play American teams especially. I know it can be tempting to take out your Thunderbolt and bomb tanks and pillboxes, but you'll be putting your team at a disadvantage by doing so. The opening stages of an air RB game is where air superiority is determined, and your team will need every fighter it has to be operating at maximum combat efficiency. Take your plane out clean first with no ordnance, secure the air, and then, if the enemy has retreated for repairs or if you need to do so yourself, head back to your base, land, and once you've repaired, you can J out and select your bombs and rockets to go after ground targets. This is the best way to use a multi-role fighter, and you will on average get more air and ground kills and therefore more research in Silver Lions by following this tactic. It is the golden rule. Speaking of rules, here's another one. Don't space climb, just don't do it. The time you waste climbing to space in a bomber could be better earned in another game where you have the possibility of victory. If you are the last one in your team with no hope of winning, just take your bomber to low altitude and try and get a couple of cheeky pilot snipes with your gunners and go down in firing glory. Climbing to space tanks your battle time, which reduces your possible earnings, and it makes you look like a bit of a selfish person by doing so. A final tip for Air RB is something that, again, I don't think everyone always takes into consideration, is you need to find aircraft that you're comfortable with you. Everyone will have their own particular style of playing, and as such, certain aircraft will suit them more. In air realistic battles, you only get the one spawn per game, so if you are grinding lines, you want to make sure that your aircraft is easy to handle and you know how to use it best. There is no point in having a really good premium plane if you're not good with it, or find its style of handling not to your taste. It will just leave you frustrated. Experiment with different aircraft, find one that seems to suit your playstyle with the best, and then stick at it, and your rewards will do nothing but slowly increase to the point where you are constantly getting good games with it. And yes, you will still get bad games, but provided you stick with an aircraft that is easy to use, you will eventually become a master at your trade. And now we get to Air Sim, and I'm not going to lie, Air Sim is probably going to be the place where you'll, at the moment, theoretically, get the most earnings per game. Although that being said, sometimes you will not average the most earnings per hour, especially when it comes to Silver Lions, as the rewards in Sim have unfortunately received several heavy nerfs over the past couple of years, which has led to a considerable souring of the player base, including myself, and was sort of responsible for the video that I put out the other week. And again, apologies for that. But moving on from that, I'm going to talk about how you can work Sim to your advantage, whether you are a Sim enthusiast or whether you're relatively new to the game mode. So, Air Sim. First of all, wages. Wages do not work in the sim rooms that are automatically created by the game, but they do work in player created rooms. Now those 5 or 10 kill wages are very easy to achieve with Sim, actually the same as realistic, as 1 kill counts as 2 on the wager. So to advance a stage in the 10 kill wager, you only need to destroy 5 opponents in a Sim battle. And that's pretty easy to do when they happen to go on for a couple of hours. Now another thing to consider here, bombing. It is significantly easier in Sim than the other game modes, so if you like bombers, then it is the place to be. Now, the Sim community is quite divided over the state of bombers at the moment, and that is because they are a bit broken when it comes to their defenses. Now, they still get the same external gun cameras that can be found in arcade and realistic modes, giving bomber pilots a huge advantage in situational awareness and firepower, where fighter pilots and most attacker pilots are often stuck in the cockpit. A bomber, when played well, can rack up a lot of kills and a lot of points by bombing targets and keeping one eye on their six. Now, if you're willing to spend money, then certain premium bombers can print you a godly amount of silver lions if used correctly. Be warned though, bomber rewards have also received a bit of a nerf. You only get half of your earnings when you bomb a target, and then you need to land to get the rest. So unless you are very good at keeping your plane in the sky and alive until you get back to base, you will probably earn less silver lions per hour on average bombing in sim compared to RB. But this is on a case-by-case and a plane-by-plane basis, so some experimentation is required. Now, another money maker for silver lions is using rockets en masse. Now, this does require you to have a higher tier jet like an IL-28 and F4 Phantom and some of the other attackers which have lots of rocket pods. But a game spent firing rockets at airfields or mini bases will net you a lot of silver lions, especially if you use a booster and especially if your team wins. Now, if you do well in sim, the earnings can be very high indeed, and also a greater emphasis is now placed on victory because of this. Winning in sim obviously nets you a lot more than a loss, so you do need to focus on your objectives. It won't mean much if you drop 20 tons of TNT or kill 20 enemies if the other team is objective focused and is bleeding away your tickets faster than you. Now, if the match starts getting close, you will need to start focusing on the objectives rather than bombing or rocketing or fighting or whatever. This applies to whatever role you want. Objectives often decide a game. You need to focus on them. And also, much like wages, boosters can be very useful in sim, but be aware that boosters work a bit differently compared to the other modes. In arcade and realistic, a booster use is counted on a per battle basis, so a 30% RP booster will last for 5 battles. In air sim, the games can last for up to 3 hours, so to make those boosters not as OP as they would be, they are limited to 30-minute blocks. So if you have a 5 battle booster, it counts a battle for every 30 minutes that you are in the sim game. So if you run a booster for a full sim game of 3 hours, you will feel its effects for 2.5 of those 3 hours. Ultimately, when done right, you can make some pretty decent earnings in any game mode, although some game modes will be easier than others depending on your playstyle. For me, as a sim player, I of course earn the most usually in sim, with the exception of silver lions in some games where I actually earn more playing either RB for tanks or even air arcade battles. It really can depend on what kind of game you're in and what tier you're in. I definitely think for higher tier, the earnings are the best, probably in sim. For the lower and mid tiers, I'd say RB is actually the better way to go. So take that with a grain of salt, that's just based on my opinion. However, some people say that they've had good earnings in all game modes just depending on what tactic they use. It all comes down to what way works best for you. Now, in terms of the grind itself, its presence in the game, how can it be improved so that the game is not in the state it is currently? Honestly, this question is beyond me, but something has to change, and soon. Gaijin are talking about adding even more modern vehicles to the game, and I am legitimately concerned for what the top tier grind is going to be like for me, let alone new players to the game and free-to-play players. A balance needs to be struck. The average rewards definitely need to be looked at, especially for mid to higher tier progression where some nations are starting to get large numbers of hugely expensive vehicles. Repair costs are just all over the place, and they in no way should be used as a way to balance certain OP vehicles. That's a problem that could easily be solved by decompressing the tech trees, but Gaijin seems intent on doing the exact opposite right now. Sure, from a business perspective they think they might be making good decisions that will encourage more money to be spent on the game, but to me it seems like short-term gain and long-term pain. These sorts of practices will drive players away in droves unless there is some relief in the future. I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks that if they actually decompress the game a bit and reduce the grinds to a more appropriate level, I would be far more inclined to actually spend money on the game. But BR compression and such is a topic for a different day. Today I just wanted to talk about the grind, its issues, and provide you guys with some tips to make it a bit less mind-numbingly painful. And I hope I did that. So if you guys enjoyed this and stuck around to the end, then thank you all very, very much for your patience and for watching. I know this was a bit of a long one, but it's something I really wanted to talk about, and looking at how many other content creators have been doing the same, it's a bloody good indicator that something needs to change, and fast. So until then, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.